On the ongoing case between Peter, Paul, and Jude Okoye, and some other people in the picture, Cynthia Morgan and Lola, the wife, let's be very clear. I'm going to be staying outside of the domestic issue. So anything that has to do with Lola, the child being called a bastard, and the family meeting they had and asking not to marry, I'm going to be staying out of it. And specifically, private issues should be handled privately. I will not set my ring light and be talking at another person's family. But something that we must establish is the one that is in court that has factual evidence. And that's because I don't want you to be swayed by anybody's opinion and turning Jude into a saint or anything. Understand for yourself, how did the case happen and who is suing who for what amount. Let's get down into the details. So, leaving the domestic, let's focus on what we can actually verify. So that is the money, the companies, the petition, EFCC investigation, and what is actually going on in court. So one very important lesson here, or one very important note, is that Jude Okoye is not facing one EFCC case. He's facing two separate criminal prosecutions. And Jude has pleaded not guilty. So everything that I'm going to say here remains an allegation unless the court proves him guilty. So now, how did we even get here? So Peter Okoye said that after P-Square separated, that he began questioning how the group's finances and royalties were being handled. So he was suspicious. So according to Peter's testimony at the Federal Court, he eventually searched the Corporate Affairs Commission record and discovered that there was another company called Northside Music Limited that he doesn't know about. And that made him very, very curious. So Peter's allegation is that Northside Music Limited was being used to receive royalties connected to P-Square without his knowledge. So he didn't know the company, but he saw that transactions were being done on behalf of P-Square with the company. So he later told his lawyer to petition the EFCC for EFCC to investigate the issue. So Peter did not charge Jude. Peter only made a complaint to EFCC on suspicion of fraudulent financial practices based on a company that was established without his knowledge. So the EFCC investigated the complaint and decided that there was enough evidence in its view to actually bring criminal charges against Jude. So remember, EFCC criminally charged Jude, not Peter, but Peter became a prosecution witness. So when you get to the court, it is not Peter versus Jude, it's EFCC versus Jude, right? So this is where the story is getting very, very interesting. So like I said, there are separate cases. The very first case, on February 26, 2025, the EFCC arraigned Jude Okoye and Northside Music Limited before Justice Alexandra Uweye of the Federal High Court in Lagos. And this case contains 7 counts, principally involving alleged money laundering. And the figures attached to this prosecution include approximately 1.38 billion naira, $1 million, and another 34,537,000 pounds. Jude and the company, that's Jude and Northside Limited, pleaded not guilty. Another of the allegations concerns the property at number 5, Tony Ero Mosele Street, Parkview Estate, Ikoyi. According to the charge reported from the court, the EFCC alleges that Jude and Northside Music acquired that property in 2022 for approximately 850 million, using money that the prosecution says represented proceeds of an unlawful act. Remember, proceed of an unlawful act. That's why I see, when you are going back and forth in this, there's so many details they are going to leave out. The entertainment, music industry, skit making is a very dark place. Forget all the paparazzi. Very dark place, but I won't say more than that. So, again, that is the EFCC's allegation. Another allegation involved approximately $1,019,762. The EFCC alleged that that money in an Access Bank account was converted into Naira through a bureau de change and transferred through different accounts in a manner intended to conceal its alleged origin. That allegation falls under the Nigerian Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act. So, you see what's going on. And maybe this starts making sense on why some money was not known to Peter. Because like I said, allegedly, all these people will receive money through some arrangement, and if you were not part of that arrangement, they might not bring it to your notice, obviously, because, you know, man, no man, send this, send that. And so if that money came into an account, which you probably have seen, that, oh, why did this person get 50,000? I got 150, that person got 150, because you were not part of the arrangement. Again, allegedly. Right? So what is the second case? Then the second case is very, very different. On March 4, 2025, Jude and Northside Music Limited appeared before Justice Rahman Oshodi at the Lagos State Special Offences Court in Ikeja, and the charge is reported under the reference number 99260-2025. This case contains 4 counts relating to alleged stealing and conversion of music royalties. Now, this is now the specific one that concerns Peter. The prosecution alleges that $767,554.15 connected to payment from Lex Record Limited was dishonestly converted. Another £34,537.59 also linked to Lex Record forms another count. A third count concerns $133,566 from Cobalt Music, and a fourth concerns $118,652 from MTech Limited. When you add all the dollars figure together, you get approximately $1.019 million plus the £34,500. So the EFCC case is that these were digital distribution and publishing royalties that Peter had an interest in that money. And Jude's position in this again is that he is not guilty. So this is where I think that the case becomes even way more interesting. And Peter has already been cross-examined. For example, during the proceeding in February 2026, Peter acknowledged that he was a co-signatory to a Northside Entertainment bank account after earlier testimony had presented Jude as having sole control. So Jude says, it's my account, nothing has to do with Peter, but Peter showed evidence that he was a signatory to that account. So the defense used bank mandate documents to challenge that part of Peter's evidence that it is not true, it wasn't a signatory. And there was another significant development. Peter had alleged that approximately $800,000 had been fraudulently withdrawn, but during the proceedings in late 2025, the EFCC told the Ikeja court that it could not produce evidence supporting that specific $800,000 allegation. So in all of this, let's talk about Paul's role, because this is another area where everybody is trying to, scatter things. So Paul Okoye is not the defendant in this true prosecution. Jude, their brother, and Northside Music Limited are. But when during the whole saga, Paul was the one who stood and granted bail for Jude, who stood as a shorty. And in the case, in the court document, they said they needed 2 shorties. I know that somebody has mentioned that Fino was one of the shorty, but nowhere in the videos, in the documents, was Fino ever mentioned, at least that I know of. And in the videos when he was released from court, which I'm going to play shortly, he was not also seen in that video. Let's watch it. So, specifically about the bail. In the Federal High Court case, Jude was granted a bail on March 3, 2025 in the sum of 100 million naira with 2 shorties in like sum. Like I said, 2 shorties. The court imposed conditions relating to property, identification and verification of the shorties, and restricted Jude from traveling outside Nigeria while the case remained pending. Paul appeared in court and indicated his witness, like I said, to stand as shorty, and you could see in that video that we just watched, because the court required 2 shorties and some documentation. And in the second case, on March 6, 2025, Justice Rahman Oshodi granted him 50 million bail, again with 2 shorties in like sum in the Ikeja case. And in that case as well, the court also ordered Jude to surrender both his Nigerian passport and his St. Kitts and Nevis passport so that he could not travel. So where are we today? June 17, 2026, the federal court case was still continue, and Peter was supposed to return for further cross-examination, but he did not appear. So Peter did not appear in the last cross-examination that was supposed to be held in court. And the EFCC prosecutor GC Akaogu told the court that Peter's Abuja to Lagos flight had been rescheduled. That was the reason why he didn't show up. But Jude's lawyer, who is Clement Onwewuno, senior advocate of Nigeria, challenged that explanation and told the court that the information that got to them was that Peter was actually in Lagos and not in Abuja, and he didn't show up because he didn't want to show up. So Justice Okoye adjourned the federal case to September 21, 2026 for continuation, and Peter has been making a lot of allegations online. So, but the bottom line when you look at all these cases is that If the EFCC investigated and filed criminal charges, even though Jude says he's innocent, but the EFCC would never have gone to court without an evidence. They would never have gone to court if they didn't see all of these financial movements. So the question here is simple. For all those years when P Square was generating millions, who owned what? Who received what? Where did the money go? And can every person involved account for that money? And one thing that you guys must understand is that this case can end up sending every one of them to jail. Because if sums of money that was not attributed to specific musical concerts, shows, or royalties was received and shared by all of them, or everybody could easily be going to jail. But again, like I said, I'm going to remove emotions from there. But as you see, Jude is facing a lot of allegations, and the fight is between Jude and EFCC. And like I said, for EFCC to be going around like this, they 100% have seen evidences of these transactions. So that's my submission. Like I said, I'm not going to get into the domestic part because it's not supposed to be what we will turn to social media talks back and forth. No, that's a personal concern. But indeed, EFCC found incriminating elements. That's why they are charging Jude to court. So nobody should come and say, oh, Jude is very innocent. He's little than that. The matter is in court. There's lots of evidence, and the court is not granting him, or is not saying that he has been discharged and acquitted. So that's my submission, removing the domestic part, removing emotions. But again, let's see what the court of law says. And anybody that has anything, go and tender it to court. Stop social media justice. Share this video with everyone within your circle. Have a wonderful day, and definitely stay safe. Thank you.